Good afternoon, everyone. And as Robert said, my name is Josephine Walsh. It's a pleasure to be speaking here at the ITEC 2013 conference. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land and paying my respects to their elders past and present. I'm currently acting as the Schools Learning Coordinator at MoAD, but my normal role is a Schools Learning Officer. And I have a lot to do with the interactive technology that school students use at the museum. So for those of you who don't know, the Museum of Australian Democracy is a relatively new institution which opened in May 2009 within the iconic heritage-listed building of Old Parliament House. A brief bit of history. The building was designed by John Smith Murdoch as the Provincial Parliament House and was where Federal Parliament was based between 1927 and 1988. The building bore witness to many defining moments in Australia's political history, including the death of one of Australia's favourite Prime Ministers, John Curtin, in 1945, the tabling of the Yirrkala Bark petitions in 1963, and of course the famous dismissal of the Gough Whitlam government in 1975. In the decades following the politician's departure in 1988, Old Parliament House was used for many different purposes, including housing the National Museum of Australia and the National Portrait Gallery before each of these spaces had purpose-built sites. In May 2009, the Museum of Australian Democracy opened with a defined vision to celebrate, debate and experience the journey of Australia's democracy. As well as being able to experience the heritage gems that are the House of Representatives and the Senate, as well as the Prime Minister's office, visitors can explore interpreted spaces and exhibitions which focus on the events and people who have changed Australia's cultural, political and social landscape. You can see Washington's inkset on loan from the US, daring cartoonists poking fun at our politicians, a graffiti fragment of the Berlin Wall, as well as some interesting protest memorabilia connected to a very well-documented protest which happened at the Sydney Opera House, but I'm not going to put any photos of that up here at the risk of offending people. How did the school's learning team use these exciting objects, concepts, people and spaces to inform and inspire students about the important role that they play in shaping Australia's democracy? In 2006, when federal funding became available for the establishment of MoAD, the school's learning team were keen to investigate the opportunities that technology could provide in enhancing the student experience during programs. As Old Parliament House, the learning programs had used paper-based worksheets which helped students to navigate through the exhibitions and included activities relating to key objects and concepts. As MoAD, we wanted the learning experience to be democratic and provide students with meaningful opportunities to learn and respond to what they were learning. The challenge of integrating technology within an existing heritage space was a challenge to be considered, as well as a strong desire for the tech experience not to overwhelm the learning experience. An appreciation of and awareness of the need to protect our heritage building does play a significant part in our education programs at MoAD. All of our programs are facilitated by schools learning presenters so that we can educate and manage large groups in fragile spaces. Also, all of our students wear a pair of these very stylish white cotton gloves throughout their experience, and this is a physical and visual reminder that they're in a fragile space and they need to be mindful of the way that they're behaving. It also prevents the oils and acids from the skin, leaving marks and contributing to wear and tear of the building. So my presentation today is going to give you an insight into how innovative RFID technology and software have been used to create a successful and engaging on-site schools program. Annually, we have between 75,000 and 80,000 students who visit us at the museum, and they come from all over Australia. My abstract for this presentation referred to the Oyster card used by the London Underground train network because I thought this was a really good analogy to explain how our system works. The Oyster card is a plastic smart card which is used instead of a ticket, so you can just swipe it at the gate and travel to different parts of the city. The Underground has a long history of being a unique place for art and for commuters to enjoy artistic expression, which ranges from looking at different types of architecture, heritage technology, posters, poetry, graffiti, and enjoying the work of the buskers. Your Oyster card gives you access to a weird and wonderful cultural landscape which is hidden below the city but is an intrinsic part of London. So what's the link? The Oyster card uses RFID technology, which stands for Radio Frequency Identification Device. The card contains a small chip which, when swiped at the reader, announces that the commuter is there and that they have access to pass through. MoAD is using RFID technology across its 3 core exhibitions for the primary program, which is called Who's the Boss, and the secondary student program, which is called Our Voices, Our Choices. And I have a short video to show you, which shows you a bit more about how the program works. And I do apologise because there's going to be a bit of double vision in this experience. So if we could just click the orange card. So we're a museum all about democracy. We explore these ideas about how we can get involved and have a say and change our country. We're in an exhibition at the moment which looks at the different events and the people that have helped that process and are still helping that process to evolve. You're going to see lots of really cool objects this afternoon. You're going to be looking at some really important artefacts which help tell us this story about democracy. And the best way you're going to find out about that is by using these cards. You're going to go on an interactive trail. Now, the way that these work, this is your key. I want you to pretend that these little lights that you see around the screens, they will come on in a minute, these are your locks. You swipe the key in the lock and then you'll be answering questions on the screen. Best way to do that is a nice pointy finger and you drag the little green dot. When you're finished answering your questions, you're going to move to the next screen. A little map will pop up showing you where you're going. So we might start here and get sent over to Visionaries. We'll swipe our card at the next screen and get started on the next set of questions. If you get lost, your team badge will appear, which you get to pick at the start. Remember which one you pick, and it will show you where you're meant to be. Does that make sense? Yeah? If you can't find what you're looking for, if you don't know the answer to a question, have a look around because there's lots of objects and information here that will help you get to the answer.
Which one, that one?
Yeah, that one. Nice game.
Just up there. Find the sculpture Belarus Bride nearby. Have a close look. Notice the statue has no eyes. That's it there. Belarus Bride. Alright.
Go back.
That's right. What do you think the Belarus Bride may be thinking? I feel like an object.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it
Smart.
That's what other students thought. What do you understand trafficking to mean in this context? It refers
Bought and sold.
Oh, either that one or that one. It refers to the
Why would it be
movement of
referring to people?
between countries. Alright, whatever you say.
Don't think I'm wrong.
It refers
See?
to people being bought and
I was
sold.
right.
That's right.
Do you think same-sex marriage is a religious issue or a civic issue?
I reckon it's either religious or civic, but I'm going to go with civic. What
I'm
do you
going to
reckon?
go in between. Oh, that's all right.
Match the image to the idea. I reckon that goes with the Prime Minister has too much power.
Which one do you think is detention centres?
This one. It's true. Oh, yeah, correct. Good.
Hello.
So, as you've just seen, the students work in teams to undertake an interactive trail throughout the exhibitions. They use an orange keycard to unlock hidden activities on the screens throughout the spaces, and as you've just seen, they will experience a range of different activities which ask them to find objects, give their opinion, and just to learn a little bit more about the concepts of democracy. Schools Learning presenters introduce the exhibition spaces and trail, and they spark students' interest in the objects and concepts that they're going to be encountering. At the end of the experience, presenters debrief with the students and they share with the group information that was interesting to them and ask further questions about the objects, facts and ideas that they've encountered. As you've seen, the interactive trail also supports students to be able to confidently navigate through an exhibition space, which is incredibly empowering for them. Basically, the presenters are there to assist, but we really step back and let the students learn at their own pace. They take charge of their own learning, which is really wonderful to see. Schools Learning author all of the content which appears in the activities through a content authoring system, which is a Safari-based program, and I'll come back to that in a little while. So how is this system designed and created? From the outset of the project, MoAD worked with EDM Studio to ensure that the technology would support the diverse ways in which students learn. This involved a lot of brainstorming between the learning team and the software designers and programmers. We needed something that was robust, but it had to be embedded within the existing exhibition. The Rfid system is a closed system. It uses the internet, but it doesn't rely on Wi-Fi, which is notoriously difficult in a heritage building. We also wanted something hands-free. We wanted to move away from the traditional paper-based worksheets where students were busy with holding clipboards and recording their responses. So we really needed to show a way that students could receive quick bite-sized pieces of information, but also give them that jumping off point to have deeper conversations about an issue and articulate their own views in response to what they were learning. So as such, EDM designed a suite of modules for us as part of the software. So these are the different templates that we use to create activities as part of the program. So some of the modules that we have are story-based modules. It's just to convey information. We also have a drag opinion module where students select from a variety of different responses, and then it shows how they compare with what other students have thought. So it's not a right or wrong answer. Students see in bold the answer that they picked and which answer was most popular with other students who've asked that question. My favourite one of these modules is the Continuum Module, where students are asked a question and they have to show where they stand. So we try and make these questions quite black and white, and this really develops the students' ability to empathise. They have to put themselves in another's shoes. So what would you do if you were the Prime Minister? How would you deal with this particular issue? We also have drag, fact and multiple choice questions where students pick the correct answer or multiple correct answers. And we also have a video module so that students can look at video or sound material and then respond to that. There were some other very important considerations about how the software would work. Mainly, we had to make sure that we had control of the content authoring. As I said, all of the content is written by the Schools Learning team. We connect all of our activities to the national curriculum, relate it to objects that are on display and the values of MoAD. So very recently, when Kevin Rudd replaced Julia Gillard as Prime Minister of Australia, I was able to go into the activity, which we have for students. It says, who is the current Prime Minister of Australia? And I was able to update that within about 5 minutes. So the students that came in at 9:30 were like, oh, we have a new Prime Minister. And that is really exceptional, the fact that we can do that so quickly and so seamlessly. The graphic design of the interactives was really important as well. You'll notice that the design is quite clean and crisp. We didn't want it to distract from the learning experience. We didn't want the kids to be so overwhelmed with the technology that got in the way of them actually going to look at objects and to find out information about it. Wayfinding was also important. It needed to be very clear where students were going to next. And as I said before, some students will have never been in an exhibition before, so this experience is very empowering for them. At first, they start off and they're not sure where they're going. By the end of the program, they are racing around and we have to get them to physically slow down. So we have a very clear map which involves having a text direction, so you are going here, a map which orients the students and says this is where you're going next so that they can visualise where they're going, and a badge which is on the screen for when the kids arrive so they know that they're at the right spot. Another important consideration was the ability to share the exhibition with other visitors. So there is public content available on all of the screens which visitors use, and it was important that there could be that sharing of the space between the school students and the visitors. Another really important consideration with this program was the ability to have a post-visit resource for teachers and students to extend their experience back in the classroom. And this is called the Democracy Download. Basically, the resource is unique to each student team that goes on the program. The teacher can elect to be sent a link via their email. When they open that link, they come to a closed website. From that website, they can then go and download individual activities that are unique to each student team. So within that PDF pack, you might get a suite of activities, including one like this, which is about the Aboriginal Tent Embassy. So with the download, it really reinforces what the students did on site. So you can see this graphic and text here. It reminds students that they were asked that question, and it reminds them of the answer that they gave. They can see where other students stood in relation to that question. And also this resource provides some really good follow-up activities to help deepen and extend that understanding and conversation back in the classroom. The resource is strongly linked to the national curriculum, particularly the history and civics and citizenship subjects, and therefore it's really relevant to what's being taught in the classroom. Ongoing modifications and improvements. So just to give you a bit of an understanding about how we work with pushing through improvements and suggested changes, EDM Studio have software designers and programmers based in Canada, the Czech Republic and Greece. So we use email, Skype, and we communicate via Basecamp, which is an online sort of discussion board. And this is a really crucial way for us to document any changes that we'd like to make. One of the suggested changes was we needed to make the map easier for students to use. So the exhibition designers were able to provide an orientation-based map so that students could visualise, okay, I'm here, I need to go up and right to get to the next screen, as opposed to trying to think about where they were in relation to the map and get to the next station from there. Another improvement was that we had to slow down the speed at which students could progress through the activities, so make sure that they actually had time to read. We can delay the appearance of this little arc and the dot so that students actually have some time. Really quickly, because I know that some people might have questions, what opportunities does this sort of program have for the future? We'd really love to update the content authoring system, make it a bit more user-friendly. At the moment, we're a little bit limited by the amount of text we can use. It's like tweeting. It's got some advantages because you have to be very succinct and make sure that you're on message, but it would be nice if we could have a bit more room to move when we're conveying those more complex subjects to students. The Democracy Download, it would be great to do some evaluation on this resource and find out exactly how teachers and students are using it back at school and working out if we can make that more accessible and more user-friendly for classrooms. Maybe some more learning modules, so being able to have a module where students can sort ideas for and against a topic on the screen and then have a conversation about that. That would be awesome. There are certain objects and facts that students always remember during the presenter debrief, and I'd really like to know, is this because the object is really engaging and fun? Is it because the activity really facilitates the retention of knowledge about that object and it sparks the students' interest, or is it a combination of both? We could do some really interesting research into that. Also, could RFID be used for public visitors, and could this be used for them to connect with and engage with content in the exhibitions? I think I'm out of time, but in conclusion, we really think that this program is a shining example of how technology can engage students in a traditional museum space. We think that this program, developed with EDM Studio, provides really enriching opportunities for students to learn, engage and have fun within a museum. It's a robust system, it's easy to use, and it gives us so much control over the content that we want to talk about in our institution. Teachers really love it. They love seeing their classes working together and having fun, and the students always ask, can we do that again? So we're really thrilled with it. I hope this has given you a little bit more information about how our system works, and thank you for listening to my presentation today.
So we've got a microphone, so if there's any questions for Josephine.
Hey, Jose.
Hello.
I'd like to know, what are the things that students retain? What are these gems of knowledge?
We have a fragment of the Berlin Wall. They always want to talk about the fragment of the Berlin Wall because it's very colourful. It's got graffiti all over it. We have a really old coin which was minted in 1853, and the students they always love looking at it because it's so small and it's that I don't know, they always seem to remember how old it is, which is great. And we also have a tactile bust of Thomas Muir, who was a Scottish revolutionary, and he has an eye patch, and the students are invited to touch that object. They can always remember that he lost his eye during a fight when he was trying to escape. So I don't know if those objects are just, they really hook the kids in, but those are the ones that, I think the tactile thing has got a lot to do with it. But it is also interesting to think about the fact that they remember knowledge that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it's a tactile object. They remember exactly how old it is, how small it is. So yeah, I'd be really interested to see if we can harness the activities that we've got about those objects and transpose them onto objects which are maybe not as frequently remembered. Yeah.
Just curious as to how long the process took from the first idea to the implementation and how expensive it was.
Yeah. So I think the research started in about 2006, 2007. It took about 2 years from that initial sort of researching and scoping phase to the program as it is today. So I think it was end of 2010 was when the software and the hardware was all installed, and then after that there was just an ongoing period of tweaking. It's quite interesting because we had security cameras in the exhibition spaces, and the designers and the programmers would actually watch from overseas and sort of watch how the kids were working in the spaces, and then we would have conversations with them online about that process and how we could modify it. How much? It was about 300,000, which was the software. We had the hardware already built into the system. So the RFID readers are already a part of the exhibition spaces. But another really great thing about this is that the cards themselves are actually quite affordable. So it's not like if a student takes an iPad home with them, your finance team are going to want to know about it. We can replace these relatively easily and cheaply. Yeah.
My friend asked you how much it cost. I'm interested, particularly with government organisations, about the complexities of procurement and the way the procurement processes sometimes result in one having to pick the person who isn't the best person for the job. Did you have any issues like that? And how did you navigate them?
That's a great question. Look, I think the procurement process was quite competitive. As far as we know, EDM Studio are the only designers who are using RFID in a learning context in the world, as far as we know. So really, they are the sole providers of this sort of software. But interestingly, I said that the public content is also available on the screens, and we can go out to tender for that process. So different web designers and content providers can make their content fit within the application that we have as part of the RFID system. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
That the best person was the only one.
Yeah, they are very, very good. We've been very, very happy with them. So.
How many students can you get through using that system in one go? And does that then free up the time of your education staff to
do other things?
Do other things, or get a coffee?
So we have, our first program starts at 9 every day, and our last program finishes at 5, and they run on half-an-hour intervals. The exhibitions can handle up to 65 students per program. So across the 3 exhibitions, what we might do is we might take 40 into the biggest exhibition and then 25 into one of the smaller exhibitions. Our presenters stay with the students for the whole experience. So it's not as if this experience has meant that the presenters are more hands-off, because we think that bookending of the experience with a real person talking about objects and facts and what they're going to be doing is really, really important. So that hasn't taken away from our staff in terms of the on-site presentation.
Has that changed the way you do training for your staff in content delivery and engaging with students?
Yes, definitely. It's a very easy system to use. So we have a variety of presenters who are, uni students who've just left to retired teachers who may not necessarily be as comfortable with that sort of technology, but it's really easy to use. It just means that our presenters have to be really succinct and to the point to make sure that the students get the most time as they possibly can on the interactive, because that's where they're doing the learning. They're having that social experience, which is probably going to be more effective than us standing and talking at them for half an hour about an object. So I better wrap up, but if you have any questions, come see me at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much.